Next, we have two people who really of a historical importance. Dr. Terry Todd, Dr. Jan Todd. These are people who have dedicated their life to powerlifting, Olympic lifting, training others, teaching others. They're the co-founders of the Stark Center for Physical Culture and Sports, the largest museum of its kind in the world, with over 150,000 books, photos. In fact, I've donated my papers there. Arnold's donated his papers there, Jack LaLanne, Ben and Joe Weider. So it's the largest historical collection of all of these things that are so important to us as bodybuilding and fitness people. It is also the official home of the International Sports Hall of Fame, and that's where we enshrine the signed posters and medals and so on. Jan and Terry, also the directors and creators, along with Arnold and Jim, of the Arnold Strongman Classic Competition. This is the greatest, most prominent strongman competition in the world, and brings, as you can see, those 6'9", 425-pound men. Dr. Terry Todd has he had a career as a journalist with Sports Illustrated, ESPN. In fact, back 30 years ago, Terry and I were doing Good Morning America and a few shows like that. The Todds live on a 300-acre cattle ranch in San Marcos River with a large collection of animals, which reminds them of their athletes, including five peacocks, draft horse, 50 cattle, 2 Sicilian donkeys, English Mastiff dog, emu. At the 1965 Nationals, Terry Todd became the first man to squat 700 pounds at a body weight of 335, and now he's only about 410, I think, so he's come up a little. Dr. Todd became the first man to total 1,600, 1,700, 1,800, 1,900 pounds. Best official lifts were 720-pound squat, 515-pound bench press, 742-pound deadlift. Just a remarkable athlete. Now, the other half, Dr. Jan Todd. Dr. Jan Todd began her powerlifting career and was considered the strongest woman in the world. As a powerlifter, Dr. Jan Todd set more than 60 national world records, also included in the Guinness Book of World Records for her remarkable accomplishments. Jan was the first woman inducted into the International Powerlifting Hall of Fame, and she was also inducted in the first class in the Women's Powerlifting Hall of Fame, and they are the first married couple to be inducted into the International Sports Hall of Fame. You got it? Okay.
You get to put this on him.
Yeah, I'm going to put it on both of you.
All right, there you
We
go.
got two. No,
We have two.
Two. What do you think? We're cheap here.
I would never actually think that, Bob.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, let me put these on you.
Thank you.
Fairfax is going to take that for me.
Thanks.
There you go. There you go.
Very nice.
Now, I know these guys can handle this, so. Okay.
Bob and Arnold and Jim and all the rest of you. It's a pleasure to be here. It's different than what I expected it would be, and I expected it would be a little bit unusual. And it's nice to see so many people that are sort of have been my models, people that I admired, and so many of them here today. Everyone seems bound together by the fact that we all share the idea, at least, some of us more completely, but to some extent, even if we're not primarily weightlifters or bodybuilders or powerlifters, but we all understand the importance in today's culture of heavy training, strength training. And I mean, there are just so many people, and you look, I mean, there's Mark in the front row. It was mentioned about the very first contest. Mark asked if he could be in it, and I was reluctant at first because I thought, well, he's now being advertised by Vince McMahon as the strongest man in the world. I said, what if you go to this show and you win third place? Is Vince going to advertise you as Mark Henry, third strongest man in the world? That's not gonna be that will not work. I said, unless Vince gives you a direct okay, I'm not gonna let you in the show. But he went to Vince, and Vince said yes, and Mark managed to win. And I will say, and to his credit, every year since then, he has come here on his own nickel, or maybe Vince McMahon's nickel, and he's come here and to actually pay his respects to the people who put this show on and make it happen. And he's been a mentor to a lot of the young, strong men who've come up and done well. So that's a fine thing. But so many other people that are just among, the greatest in the field that I kind of made my early focus to be. And I see Franco is here, and of course Bill and Eddie, and just a bunch of other people in here. There's Kurt. These are special people, and but they do share that one thing: the whole business of training. I look over and I see Jim Lorimer sitting there, and there are not many people in the room old as Jim is, or as I am. We remember things that most of you wouldn't remember, but once you went through it, you'll never forget. And that is the fact that there was a time when if you lifted weights to make yourself stronger or to be physically bigger or to be a better athlete, you were looked down on as an idiot, as someone who is too stupid to understand that lifting heavy weights would make you muscle bound. That was the term. You were bound by your muscles. You would be slower and less flexible. And Jim remembers that. I remember that. I was a varsity athlete at the University of Texas, and the trainer wouldn't even talk to me because he said, I know you're the one who lifts the weights. If you don't stop lifting weights, your back is always going to hurt. And so you stop lifting weights, come back and I'll help you. So, but that was believed, all the way up through the 50s and in parts of the 60s. And it died a hard death. A lot of people went through it. Even Arnold, I would imagine, remembers a bit of that going on even in Europe, although Europe was always ahead of us in that regard. So I think since we have a kind of limited amount of time on stage, we have to rush back over and do our little bit with the cave trolls who are over there fighting against one another. But I would just like to say, since I have this moment and with the world's media here, I would like to say to all of the doctors who said it was the worst thing you could do, all of the coaches who said it was the worst thing you could do, all of the sports scientists who said it was the worst thing you could do, you were full of shit. All of you know this. We were right back then. You have been right, even if you just touched an edge of it. But that makes me feel good to say that, and I'm going to step back.
Well, that's going to be hard to follow, I think. So I'll be a little different than Terry, but I am a little different than Terry. I think that for me, one of the things I was thinking about this morning as I was getting ready, and the strongman contest actually starts on the stage at 1:45. So if we disappear quickly, it's not that we don't love and appreciate being here and would love to visit with all of you, but we have a big contest with a lot of incredible things going on that we have to get back to. But I was thinking this morning as I was standing on this, sort of sitting thinking about what am I going to say, that if I had thought back, or if I had ever thought when I was in high school, and I graduated from high school in 1970, that I would one day be standing on the stage being inducted into the International Sports Hall of Fame, I would have probably also said what Terry just said in terms of the doctors. Because in 1970, when I graduated from high school, I didn't think about being an athlete. I grew up before Title IX. I didn't have the opportunity to play organized sports in my high school because we had no real organized women's teams in my high school. I actually didn't begin thinking of myself as an athlete until after I met this rather handsome, debonair, really, really smart guy with these huge muscles who looked unlike anybody else I'd ever seen, and I married him in 1973. And that changed my life. It fundamentally changed who I was. I went from being a sort of basically intellectual person who saw herself going on to college, which I did, and then possibly on to other places after that. But I had never, ever embraced the idea that I could be strong. So when I decided, because of Terry's example, that it was interesting to think about what women could do who lifted weights. And I'm very proud of what I did back in those early years in powerlifting, because I was sort of a pioneer. We broke some barriers, but I also was involved in the politics of the sport and tried to help fight for the right for women to actually participate in powerlifting. But there were other people then who continued to sort of inspire the transition that we've now seen that comes here. And in fact, I love the fact, Jim, that you mentioned that there are more women athletes at this event this weekend than there are men. That is a watershed for women in sport, and it's something that we should all make note of. But I think about the fact that the hardest thing for women was negotiating womanhood and strength, because strength has always been that one physical attribute that no matter what we want to talk about, that we think it's so gender specific. But nobody's saying anymore that girls can't be fast. But we still have trouble sometimes, even now, thinking about girls being strong. And I know that, and I know that Corey Everson knows that, sitting in the front row here, because she was one of the people, along with Betty Weeder, who started Shape magazine, who's also in the Hall of Fame, by the way, who were women who sort of showed us that you could be beautiful and attractive, and you could be strong, and you could have a life in the world of strength. And so those are really early pioneers, and I'm really honored today to be here looking at Corey and looking at Franco, who's Betty's very good friend, and please tell her what I said, Franco, because without them, that would have been much harder to negotiate. And it also makes me very proud to think that we are now living at a time when a young woman like Ronda Rousey can grow up in a world and never have to worry about, is it okay for me to lift weights? So if I helped in any way to do that, I'm very, very proud. Thanks to all of you. I'm very proud also, I want to just say two other things. Bob didn't mention it, but Mark Henry and Bill Kazmaier were also coached by Terry. And it makes me really happy to see both of you today. So thank you all.